What's your big focus and why is it whatever it is? We live a life in a world where, as many people have said for years, especially in their personal development world, you get what you focus on. So, a great question to ask yourself periodically, as maybe like an internal audit, is what is your big focus? What's my big focus? And more importantly, get a bit deeper by asking yourself the question, why? Why is your big focus your focus? Why is the thing that you've decided or had as a focus so important to you that it's become your focus? And just these two questions alone can unlock so much for you. It can unlock so much about why you've been producing what you've been producing. It can unlock so much about why you've been seeing the kind of results you've been seeing. It can unlock so much about why the things around you are the things around you. Because as they often say, you get what you focus on. Now, I'm a big avid reader of the Bible, and the Bible doesn't have that kind of a statement. You get what you focus on. But the Bible has multiple verses which allude to this kind of ideology that we should be focused on something, such as Proverbs 29, verse 18, which says, without a vision, the people perish, which is ultimately telling us that death is inevitable to those who do not see beyond where they currently are, right? The Bible also says in the New Testament, if the blind lead the blind, they all fall in the ditch, right? These are verses which are inspiring / encouraging us to see beyond, beyond where we are right now, to see beyond what we see right now, to see beyond the current circumstance and situation of right now. Now, in this current climate we're living in, with the things that are taking place in Iran, the things that are taking place with the US, with Israel, with the Ukraine, with Russia, all of those things, right? It's even more important for us to understand that we get what we focus on. So, an implicit third question out of the idea of what are you primarily focusing on and why is, how much of that can you actually have an impact in? And the reason I want to ask that question is because that's the crux of what I thought we should discuss in this video. Like, how much of what you have been focusing on, regardless of what it is you've been focusing on, if you've been one of those people who've just said to yourself for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I'm just going to go all in and focus on building my revenue, or I'm going to go all in and focus on building my family, I'm going to go all in and focus on building my faith, whatever your thing has been, whatever your thing is, the reality is, if you truly get what you focus on, what have you been focused on? Why have you been focused on that? And then I guess this more important question is, how much of what you've been focused on can you actually have a direct impact on? Because the reality is, if you are focused fully on something you can have no impact on, like, for example, a war, which you have no social capital or influence currently to affect, then the only thing that's going to happen is you are going to get what you focus on. And by virtue of the fact that the thing you focus on is something you can't actually even work on, then what you're going to get is something you had no influence in, you had no impact in, and you had no ability to impart into. Now, the reason why I think this is so relevant is I was recently pondering on something that I wanted to share with you. And that was the idea of what would happen if you had your own family newspaper, right? Or what would happen if you had your own personal newspaper? What would happen if you had your own source of media? Okay. And when I say source of media, I don't mean social media. I mean, what would happen if you had your own source of media? So, for example, if you were publishing your own newspaper every single day for you, if you were in charge of your feed, if you were in charge of the press release that was given to you each and every day for you to sit down, read through, and then make your deductions for the day, what would be in it? You see, if you are bold enough to take the time out and really evaluate this question, I can assure you that the ramifications, the things that will come out of you taking the time out to answer this question could rapidly change your life. Because inputs determine outputs based on the function of any formula. I'll say that again in case you need to pick up your pen, because inputs determine outputs based on any function, or formula. It's what we put into an equation that's going to determine what's going to come out of an equation. And many a time we're living lives where we're focused on things, hashtag inputs, which we don't know the reason why. And as a result, as those things, that information goes through, those press releases, those things on the feed, go through our formula, go through our function, go through our machine, they come out and produce outputs that some of us have said, these aren't the outputs I want. And for many people, the question on the inside is, well, how do I change that? And changing that is actually much simpler than many of us think. Changing that for you and I is just a matter of us recognizing that our inputs are having a massive and profound impact. That's the word. Are having a massive and profound impact on our outputs. So if we are getting outcomes in the form of outputs that we do not desire, the real reason a lot of the time is because we have inputs that we didn't require. And if you change the input, you inadvertently automatically change the output. So this is what brought me to this thought process, which I wanted to share with you around what would happen if you were the architect of your daily news. And I don't mean news like, like the Channel 4 or the BBC, or Fox, CNBC, ABC, right? The reason I'm saying I don't mean that is because sometimes when we think about those kind of news, we feel like we have to be predictive and preemptive. We have to know what's going to happen tomorrow to provide that kind of news for us. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a newspaper, for example. Imagine if you were to publish a newspaper in the next 24 hours, what stories would go inside of that? If you were tasked with the role of compiling the information in order to assist you of tomorrow with a level of transformation, what articles would go inside of that? Would there be a section on finance? Would there be a section on relationships? Would there be a section on growth? Would there be a section on development? Would there be a section on giving back? Would there be a section on hospitality? Would there be a section on humanity? Like what would your newspaper in the next 24 hours be about? Like literally as I'm asking this question and things come to your mind, I want you to drop a comment and let me know. Because that answer, these answers to the question, and the reason I'm asking you to start literally dropping it in the comments now is because I understand that you might be a person who's going to finish watching this video and not do the activity of asking yourself, what have I been focusing on, why, and how much influence do I have in those things? How much impact do I have on those things? And if you don't do that task, you won't get to the place where you ask yourself, if I was to create my own daily newspaper for myself, what would go into it? And if you do get to that space where you've either written the comment below or you've done these tasks for yourself, you will naturally, automatically start to be enriched. And the enrichment is not coming from me. The enrichment is coming from deep within, from recognizing these are the things I believe today that the me of tomorrow will need as inputs, as appropriate inputs in order for me to start producing exponential outputs. Now, the reason this is so great is because, one, you're literally paying it forward. So many people for the last 3 decades have spoken about the conceptual idea of paying it forward, right? And a lot of the time, the paying it forward concept is a concept which is spoken about in terms of charity and giving to others, right? Or giving back. That's another one, right? Paying it forward and giving it back. When the reality is, you can only give out of what you have. How can you be giving back if, for example, it wasn't the vehicles and the vessels in which you're giving to that gave you what you've got? And 9 times out of 10, that's so much so the case. Because if you become successful in business, if you become successful in property, if you become successful in some endeavor, as an influencer, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, right? As an educator, the reality is it's probably not the places you then in the future decide to invest in or support or do some form of philanthropy through, that were the vessels, vehicles, or entities that developed or invested in you. They may be, but in many cases, they're not. So the conceptual idea of giving back isn't really a real idea, because how do you give back when you're giving to a cause that maybe you feel aligned to, maybe you feel akin to, but it's not necessarily the thing that developed or built you? Just a thought, just a thought to have. So if you were in charge of your daily newspaper, what would go into it? And even make it easy for yourself. Start with 5 columns. Okay, I've got a 1-page spread for my daily newspaper for tomorrow, and there's literally just 5 columns. All I have to do is fill 5 columns. What are going to be my 5 segments? Let's even take a step back and ask the real big question. What's going to be my headline? And what's going to be the breaking news I need to tell myself tomorrow that I discovered about today? What's going to be the subheadline? What's going to be the main story? What's going to take the big, meaty, juiciest column? And then start breaking it down to the other subsidiary stories. What's going to be the second column, the third column, the fourth column, the fifth column? Because if you engage in this activity and ask yourself, what is going to be in my daily newspaper for tomorrow in the next 24 hours? I can assure you that over a period of very few days, you will stop being interested in things that don't pay. And when I say pay, no, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about truly pay. Pay intrinsically, in terms of development, in terms of love, in terms of harmony, in terms of synchronicity with the things you actually care about. If you're a person who's really devoted in your faith, there will be a segment about faith. If you're someone who really cares about your spouse, there'll be something in there, evidently, about your relationship or about something to do with your spouse. But what happens is, we live in a world where, for many of the people we know, they don't have an understanding of what they've been focused on, even though they've been focused on it. If you take a quick audit of your closest friends, your nearest and dearest, and ask them, over the last 12 months, what's been your primary focus? For most people, they will have to take an extreme amount of time to come to a conclusive answer, because most people are not aware of the primary thing they've been focused on. And if we wait the time out and we get to the space where they actually tell us, okay, Samuel, this is what it was. Imagine if we just asked them why. Okay, so why was that your main focus for the last 12 months? And this is where things start getting scary, because how are they going to honestly answer that to us when it took them so long to answer the first question on why they were even focused on that in the first place? But let's let them answer, right? Why? And after they share why, for many of the people around us, we're going to realize something very interesting. Guess what we're going to realize? We're going to realize that many of the people around us were focused on whatever they were focused on in the last 12 months without their own permission or decision. It was engineered by someone else. It was engineered by something else for them to be focused on their primary focus for the last 12 months. Let's not even get into the third part where we might ask them that third question of if you were going to scrap that. And this is the reason why I'm sharing this with you, because I know if you take the time and you do this activity, you'll be setting yourself up to literally speed past so many other people that you can later come back to help. Speed past so many other people that literally need you to do this activity so you can be of help. Because what would happen if in the next 12 months, you and I could say, I've been focused on A, B, and C, and the reason why is because of this. And in the next 24 hours, in the next 12 months, in the next 24 months, these will be my primary focuses, because this is the spread of media that I've determined that I am going to be ingesting, injecting as my input in order to produce my desired output. Outcomes are a byproduct of our inputs. Outputs are the byproduct of what we insert in. If we have the right inputs, we are determining the outputs, as long as our machine is working properly. Now, I get it. Some of us, we don't have a appropriately working machine. But this is the reason why you're watching this video. Because this is the discourse and dialogue that we're having in order to rewire and establish the appropriate wiring for our machinery. And if the machinery is working appropriately, then it's only a matter of time before the inputs produce the direct outputs that we've been waiting on all along. There are often people I come across who are unhappy with their outputs. It's easy for me to say to them, the only problem is your inputs once assessing their situation. But for some people, you and I both know, they're going to have a situation where their inputs are actually legitimate, but they're still unhappy with their outputs. And then we obviously know the problem with the situation is the mechanism, the mechanics, the framework and formula through which those inputs are going through. And then it's a simple fix because you now realize where the error is. The challenge we have in life is often we haven't identified where the error is, but yet we're still complaining, straining about why we're not gaining as it pertains to the outputs. So if we discover this simple equation, outputs are a byproduct of the inputs, but inputs are going to go through some form of a function machine, some form of a formula, some form of a framework in order to get to the outputs, then that makes things simple. When we look at the outputs and we say, I'm not extremely pleased with this output, to now simply diagnose which other part of the process is wrong. Is it the inputs or is it the actual function machine? And if you're someone who's saying to yourself, you know what, Samuel, this is really profound stuff. I actually want to go to town and go to work right now and get this fixed. Here's how you fix it. Don't automatically attempt to fix the machine. Don't automatically attempt to fix the framework, the function, the formula. Instead, automatically change the input and just watch what happens. If you are extremely meticulous and super laser focused on the input going in, and you recognize very quickly that input going in is the appropriate input, but then you still continue to see erroneous outputs, that's when you can go to work on the machine. So one of the fastest ways to fix this whole process we're talking about is just start with the inputs, refine the inputs, align the inputs, assign the inputs. So what are your inputs? If you are going in the next 24 hours to produce for yourself your news feed, if you are going in the next 24 hours to produce for yourself the newspaper that tomorrow you are going to read, if you are going in the next 24 hours to be your own mainstream or social stream media mogul, what would you prepare to feed yourself? Let me know in the comments below because I'm super interested about how we're going to move further faster. This is something I can win. I'm signing out. Good day. God bless. And as I usually say, remember, it's small keys that open up big doors. Let's go.